An adaptation is the transfer of a work or story into a film. After some extensive cross-referencing, I concluded that this was a good central premise. But sterile words on a web page do not explain everything. I wanted to know what manner of alchemy can turn this into something like this.
I'm your host, the guy in the sweater who asks all the obvious questions. Now, here to tell us about his astounding product for making cupcakes, all the way from Cheshire, England.
To understand it all, where should I look? The original authors? The agents and production middlemen? Or those people most responsible for the final product? The road can be long and complicated, but those that survive can truly thrive. I journeyed across the internet to find articles, interviews, discussions, and historically significant accounts on the subject. When it came to getting information directly from professionals, I had mixed success. Dead ends appeared with information that was too old, or worthwhile discussions that were locked behind a paywall. There were also some dead ends in my attempt to get interviews. My 2 email interviews with an author and a sound designer did not bear fruit. One responded with silence, and the other was too preoccupied with something much less important, his job that kept him fed. I did find success with 2 UCF professors that had experience in the magic of transmutation. Professor Talep and Barry Sandler were nice enough to answer my questions. Professor Barry Sandler has significant screenplay experience. While he prefers working on original ideas, he has also written several novels into films.
My name is Peter Tellup. I'm an English instructor here at the University of Central Florida. I'm being interviewed by the lovely Glenn Moore, is your last name? For his assignment in advanced screenwriting. Yes, for his assignment in advanced screenwriting. And apparently I am the professional here, so I'll speak a few words. Hopefully they'll be wise and useful to you.
What makes an adaptation good, and what makes it bad?
The most easily adaptable books are those that are more plot-driven, because you can take the plot and just, once you reduce it to cinematic terms, I mean, it's easier to reduce if it's more plot-driven material. I mean, The Godfather is primarily a plot-driven piece. I mean, you have characters and you have plot and you have story, and that was one of the great novel adaptations to screen ever. Other books by Fitzgerald or some of the authors I've mentioned before are harder to adapt because they're more dependent on the beauty of the prose rather than the plot, the actual plot.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, everybody always says the book's better, right? That's the old cliche. You take a best-selling novel that's rich in texture and character, and it's 500-600 pages or 100,000 words, or it's just beautifully written. So you're losing a lot of the prose style that might have captured you, and you're losing a lot of the scenes because you've only got 2 hours in the film. You can't shoot everything unless you turn it into a TV miniseries and go on from there.
Why can't I shoot it all? Forget a show, a big movie comes with a big budget. If I wanted creative freedom, and I wanted to stuff an entire novel into my screenplay, I would be Erich von Stroheim. He bit off more than he could chew in the aptly named Greed, a 1924 silent film based on the novel McTeague. Stroheim decided to shoot entirely on location, spending 2 months in Death Valley. Daily, cast and crew members would drop from heat exhaustion, and one of the leads was hospitalized. Stroheim's film was originally 8 hours long, then painstakingly it was cut down to 2.5. Without the director's permission, it was cut again to 140 minutes. A significant amount of suffering and Hollywood drama could have been avoided if he had a more modern approach to screenwriting. That was an early attempt, but they must have gotten better, right? Right? Well, to be honest, some movies based on books did get pretty good. Screenplay writers are able to do more than just translate. Many film versions are more famous than their origin, such as Jaws, Psycho, Planet of the Apes, The Godfather, and Die Hard. There's a good reason for that. The screenwriters did something important, something that people often hate. They changed. They added. They made it their own. Nosferatu, the unlicensed adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula, added to the mythos by making sunlight fatal to vampires. The original Planet of the Apes movie added the famous twist that the protagonist was on Earth the whole time. There are many factors at play, but ultimately, a good script matters. So, how does the sausage get made? Let's use an example. Richard Connell was a red-blooded American male, so I bet he would make great sausage. Example sausage, that is. He died in 1949, but for our purposes, he is still alive. After laboring away at his keyboard, he finally writes the short story he was famous for, The Most Dangerous Game. Next, a series of events are set in motion, events that conclude with a feature film. First things first, the author gets published. Connell was recognized as talented because he got published in the prestigious Review. His agent helps him option the short story. This is as far as most adaptations go. The story sits for a while until production gets the green light. Richard Connell gets some money for the option, as well as a percentage when production gets greenlit. Another writer is given the job of adapting. An author rarely ever adapts their own work. The studio hires someone specialized in the task, and that lucky person was me! With my new job adapting The Most Dangerous Game, I could really use advice on how to transport a story from one medium to another.
Well, yeah, again, I think that the outlining process of the original material is the way to go. Reverse engineer the storyline, every scene. You should know what every scene is. And then if you're going for a short film, what are you going to gain, what are you going to lose as you omit things, right? And then how much of that story can you tell visually? Movies are stories told in images. If they were stories told in words and dialogue, they would be radio plays. So how much of your story, how much of your exposition can be told in a single image?
At 15 pages, I thought the short story would naturally transition into a short film. I changed many details such as names, backgrounds, and the time period. Yet I tried to isolate and preserve elements that were important, such as the central premise, the similarities between the two main characters, and how the villain is a gentleman monster, which is just delightful. But after I wrote a beat sheet, there was some immediate concerns. There's little dialogue in the second half. When I started, I thought this story would be simple to transform, as it is the exciting tale of a man hunting another man for sport, an overt plot. This wasn't the interiority of the telltale heart or the sprawling stream of consciousness of Ulysses. Connell's piece even begins with dialogue replacing prose, with lines such as, "Don't you feel anything?" as if the air about us was actually poisonous. Nonetheless, it was still a prose story, and much of the second half takes place inside the protagonist's head. We brainstormed the interiority issue in workshop, considering using options such as an inanimate companion like Wilson from Castaway. I decided that it wouldn't work because the story only takes place over 3 days, and not in a situation where one would gradually go a little crazy and lonely. I found a solution by adding another character for the protagonist to interact with, a shipwrecked sailor. Finally, I made the adaptation my own by changing the setting, the specifics of the theme, and going for a more comedic tone. I had a great time learning about the troubled history of film adaptation, from the heat exhaustion of greed to modern professionals such as Professor Sandler and Talep. In the end, I learned how to preserve a story as it should be preserved, and let it change as it needs to change.